Hey folks, hello and welcome. My name is Jason Morgan. I'm a technical evangelist with Buoyant, and it's my job to talk to folks about the Linkerd project. So today I'm going to show you how to create a new cluster with the Civo Kubernetes offering, and then install Linkerd on that cluster via their Kubernetes marketplace. So let's get started. In front of you, you see the Civo Create New Cluster dialog. So I've gone over to their Kubernetes page after logging in, clicked Create New Cluster, and we're going to get started. So we're going to call it GS for getting started. We're going to just leave it as a single instance. We're going to make a small size cluster because it's about all we need for this environment. So you can see I've put in a name, given a node count, and then selected a size. So that's all you need to do to create the new cluster. Now we've got the marketplace, so we can browse through, pick different things that we might want. Some apps you just kind of install as is. Some you have to pick an individual plan. So if we hop over into architecture, we'll see that we've got traffic, which is their default ingress, the Kubernetes metrics server, and I'm going to add in Linkerd. So we're going to pick Linkerd with dashboard. We could pick Linkerd minimal if you just want enough to mesh together your applications and start getting the value out of the service mesh. We've got Linkerd with Jaeger if you're looking to do distributed tracing. And then we have the Linkerd with the dashboard where you can get the Linkerd install that you're used to, as well as a dashboard so that you can visualize stuff. So we're going to use that for our demo today. You can see that I've got three things selected: Linkerd with dashboard, traffic, and metric server. I've selected a plan for my Linkerd install, and we're going to go ahead and create a cluster. So usually it takes about 2 minutes. I'm going to let it go over to that page. Then we're going to pause and wait for it to finish up. But you can see that GS is building, and it thinks I've got about 110 seconds left. So I'll see y'all in a second when that is done. Okay, and I'm back. So I've got my cluster created. We can see some information about it, including what applications are installed via the marketplace. We can get some post-install data. So if we want to see, hey, here's how we'll go about pulling up the dashboard, we can do that. I can pull down my kubeconfig right here, but I'm actually just going to do that via the CLI. So I'm using a slightly early version of the Civo CLI. So if we go Civo version, you'll see that I'm on 7.1.2. By the time you'll get used to this, you should be at the Civo 1.0. I'm just going to go ahead and pull down the kubeconfig and write it right to my Civo kubeconfig file. So Civo Kubernetes config, and I think it was GS. We're just going to output it. I'm going to write it right to my kubeconfig because right now my kubeconfig is empty. So this will pull it down. This just outputs the kubeconfig YAML, and now I can see that my namespace or my cluster config has changed. Cool. We look over here. This guy should be updated. There we go. So I'm on my new cluster. So we're going to follow along now from here. Well, actually, hold on. Let's take a look at a couple things. So let's just go ahead and check out the pods on this Kubernetes cluster. We can see that Linkerd is installed. Is installing. We don't yet have Linkerd viz, but we're going to go ahead and use the Linkerd CLI to give ourselves a health check. You can get the Linkerd CLI. If you go over to our Getting Started guide, right at the top, it talks about where to actually get it. But you can pull down from this URL, you can just curl the latest binary. And we're going to run Linkerd check, and then I'll restart this as soon as Linkerd is finished installing. All right, thanks. All right, so our Linkerd check is finished. It says that the control plane's ready and our extension is ready. So let's go get pods -a. So just looking at all namespaces again, we see that we've got Linkerd and we've got Linkerd viz, which represents our dashboard. So let's go back to our Getting Started guide. So we can see we've got, pulling down the CLI, checking our version. We can validate our Kubernetes cluster, which the Civo marketplace install does for us. It will also handle the install, and because we selected with the dashboard, it will install the Linkerd viz. And we just ran Linkerd check to validate that we're good to go. So let's go pop open the dashboard and see what that gets us. Linkerd viz dashboard, right? Say that we want to pop this open. So I can just take a quick view around. So the Linkerd dashboard gives you an at-a-glance view of your Kubernetes cluster from the perspective of the service mesh, right? So we see basically every namespace, we see the various constructs, and then we see inside each namespace how many of the pods that are running are part of the service mesh. So that means they've got the Linkerd proxy running beside them, handling their traffic. So we can pop into Linkerd viz, we get this cool topology graph, which lets us see like what components there are, what they're talking to, a little bit about, for every application, what's the success rate, what's the request per second, and then, what's the relative latency. We've got the ability to pop out a dashboard by namespace, our Grafana dashboard by namespace, which just shows you, what's going on, so you can see what's happening. Cool. All very interesting. Now let's actually install something that we can look at. So we're going to go here and pull down the sample app that that Buoyant provides. Oops, over here, and we're going to install Emojivoto. So let's do kget pods -n emoji. We're going to create some new pods. Here I'm just going to do a little port forward. K port forward -n emoji service / web -service. And we want to forward ports 8080 to port 80 on the app. So just to get a sense of what I'm doing here, I'm running the port forward command. I'm looking in the emoji namespace for a service with this name, and I'm going to port forward port 8080 on my computer to port 80 on that container. Let's just double check that it's ready. Looks like it's up and running. So let's launch this. So now I can look over at localhost 8080. I've got an app running. It lets me vote on which emoji is best. The sunglasses thing is great. So we can see like what's going on, what's going on in the environment, and see who's voted on what emojis. If I now look in here, I see Emojivoto, but I don't have any data because nothing's been added to the mesh. So all right, let's look at what that looks like. So again, from the Getting Started guide, we can pull down the command and we can do Linkerd inject. Linkerd inject is just an annotation on your deployment that says, hey, please add the Linkerd proxy. We can put that on our namespace, your daemon set, whatever you want. And the Linkerd CLI will do that for you. So let's go ahead and do that right here. Paste anyway. Oops. Let me clear this up. Sorry about that. All right. So same thing. We're looking for the deployments in the Emojivoto namespace. We want them output as YAML. Linkerd inject will just accept the YAML and then output it with the annotation added in, and kubectl apply will just create that right back. So we can see that the Linkerd CLI said it injected those 4 deployments and that they've now been reconfigured. So if we look kget pods -n emoji, we see that new pods are coming up. We can run a check. Let's see. Let me go back to the Getting Started guide just to see what that check looks like. So we can run a check on the proxy inside the Emojivoto namespace just for it to wait to be done. We can also just look at it in the dashboard right here, and we can see that Emojivoto is now injected. We look at the success rate by the namespace and a bunch of other metrics, including number of requests and latency by latency bucket. Go into Emojivoto. We've got our graph showing how the traffic's actually flowing, and we can look in and see our problems with our application. So if we pop in a web here, we can see live requests either to or from the web service or the web deployment, right? We can see already, if we just sort by success rate, that when web calls over to voting and makes a post to this particular path with donut right in the name, that we see a 0% success rate. Head over to our app, try voting on a donut. Am I still forwarding this? Oh, oops. Let me redo my port forward. Right. And we see that we can't successfully vote on our donut. So we've gone through, we've set up our mesh, we've set up a demo application, we followed the getting started guide. You can do a little bit more as you go through here that I'm gonna skip over. But you've got the gist of how to get started with Linkerd on a Civo Kubernetes cluster. Hope this has been helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Thanks and goodbye.